Hi everyone, my name's Amelia Carr. I'm a singing teacher specialising in young voices that are training for a career in musical theatre. This week I'm going to talk to you about jaw tension. So first of all, I wanted to explain very briefly to you with my skull here about what the jaw actually, its existence basically. So if we take away your muscles and your skin, the jaw would actually be a floating bone. So it's attached here with my, in my model, obviously by wires and pins, but actually it's what we call a floating bone. Okay, so this part of your jaw would be floating were it not held together with muscle. So when we hear the word jaw tension and we think about the muscles that are connecting the top part of the head, the skull, to the bottom part of the jaw here, we might actually just really cheekily say, well, it is going to be tense, because if you think about those muscles, 1, 2 and 3 that come across here on holding the lower part of the jaw, they're working all the time, therefore they are pretty much tense. So what we actually need to do probably is train them to not be more tense, and certainly to get into good habits to allow that movement to be free. Now, why do we want that? Well, we know that if the jaw is tense, the tongue is often going to suffer, and it will affect your sound overall. You only have to try and talk. Like, you can make all sorts of silly voices by tensing your jaw. Just as a little side note, I often see singers doing the equivalent of, this looks a bit brutal, but doing the equivalent of this with their teeth. If you look at his, I always call him a he, but this, that's not great, because if you see what's going on here at this level, we should really try and avoid that. Cows do that because they can, but we're not cows, we're humans. So try not to get into a habit of doing this. It's not releasing your jaw, it's actually giving it a great big crunch, but that's a bit of a side note. So what makes those muscles more tense and what can create more tension there? Well, your bite, so where your teeth sit. So if your teeth sit forwards, or indeed if your teeth sit back, which I can't do so well with the model, but if they're forwards, that is going to affect the position of your jaw. And if you then imagine the larynx, this is huge larynx, but let's just work with this for now. If you imagine the larynx under there with that forward jaw placement, it is going to be pulling on everything. Okay, so here's an enlarged larynx. This is your tongue here, and your tongue root, and obviously the teeth. If you imagine this part, and my little finger is here, pulling forward, it is going to have an effect on the mechanism of the voice as well. So it is important that, if you have a misaligned jaw, that you see your dentist. Obviously having braces can affect tension in your jaw, because if you've got those braces stuck on here, it'll make you protrude your lips. That could then create tension here. If you've got poor head and neck alignment, then that will really affect the tension levels in your jaw. If you carry tension in your neck and shoulders, so often we see this in lots of young dancers, gymnasts, sports enthusiasts, athletes, or if you have great amount of stress, you'll carry it in your shoulders, and that might work its way up into your jaw. So you might look at alignment and breathing exercises to help you free that up a bit. If you've got a neck injury or whiplash, I haven't got my skeleton to show you right now, but if you imagine your vertebrae coming here, around about where C5 is, that is roughly, I asked my osteopath about this, roughly where C5, your cervical spine, is roughly in line with your larynx. Now that is for a grown position of the larynx. When I asked her, obviously that's for my size of larynx. So for a child that might be different. So therefore, we think about the position of where your larynx is, even as a teenager. If that is affected by whiplash. It can work its way into your jaw very quickly, and so on and so forth. So those things aren't there to give you any scare tactics. They're there just to give you ideas. You know, if you have been suffering with tension in your jaw, or you feel like it's affecting your sound, those could be a few of the things that are causing that. One of the most important things is that if somebody says to you have jaw tension, first of all, don't panic. It is easily addressed. It does take some work, but it's important that, again, you have actually checked this with a really qualified teacher, an experienced teacher who can spot the difference between different issues. So, for example, a lot of the time, jaw tension can be very closely related to tongue tension. These things are very much over-dramatised and over-panicked about, but if the tongue isn't working effectively, it will make the jaw overwork, and that is going to create tension. As we explored at the beginning of the video, those muscles are tense, they're held in place all the time. If you have speech issues such as a lisp, a husky tone, palatal issues, that may work again in your jaw having to overwork. So for that, you'd ask your singing teacher to help you refer to another specialist that might be able to help with those things, and you'll probably find that the jaw becomes a bit freer in time. So if the jaw is tight, we might hear like a tight sound, or a forced sound as well. And of course that might be because if you are locking out your jaw, it will have an effect in the rest of your neck, and therefore larynx, and therefore position of your mechanism, your instrument, and how your voice will then sound. You might have trouble articulating. You might have trouble with pitching. So what you can do yourself is you can film yourself singing and speaking, and you can notice, what do you see, what are the habits that you do. Is your chin coming forward? Is it going back? I'm not very good at doing this. You know, is it swaying off to one side? Of course, you might not have these issues whatsoever, but it's useful to film yourself so that you can see, and you might feel it as well. You can monitor your breathing. So if you are not breathing efficiently when you're singing, or if you have airflow issues, this could result in you overusing your jaw. You can monitor when you're filming as well. Is the breathing having an effect on your jaw? So for example, are you going and tensing as you breathe in? Is it tighter when you're breathing in, or when you get to the end of the phrase? All of those things are really useful for you to know, because half the time, if we can note what we're doing, we can start to unlock that. Other things you might like to notice. So if you do my squeaky exercise where you're moving your larynx slightly into a higher position, uh-oh, and then lower position, oh, ho, 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 ho. Uh-oh. You know, are you overworking the jaw there? Can you see physically where you're holding on to tensions? Please don't overreact, because the jaw, as I say, we've got to be blunt about this. It is tense. The muscles are tense because they're holding on all the time. So what we really mean when we say you've got a tight jaw is it's often because we can hear the results in the sound. As teachers, we can often, or as directors, or whoever said it to you, can often hear that the jaw is tight. So then it's just working ways. Now there's other things that you can do to start unlocking that jaw a little bit. So first of all, you might film yourself so that you can see your habits and spot them and identify them. That's really useful. You might literally find it helpful to give yourself a self-massage. And if you look at a picture of the muscles that's holding the base part of the jaw, you'll see really easily where the insertion points are. And you can start to play around and have a little massage and just give yourself a little treat here. Make sure that you're keeping your head in a beautiful alignment. Obviously you want to address your alignment, so go back to my breathing in alignment video so that you can have a look at the alignment of the head and neck. And yeah, use the camera, use the lens to see what your habits are, and just try and slowly unlock those. If you have got sound issues because of jaw tension, I would encourage you to work with a teacher. These things are very, very hard for you to undo yourself because they require quite specific knowledge to identify and address and see what the problem is. And as I say, it's very closely related to tongue work. So you could try things like putting your finger between your teeth and doing just normal singing. And I am telling you, I'm not going. You're the best man I ever know. And if you find that you've got a bite mark around your finger, you might be clamping down too much. However, with a teacher, you'll also monitor whether you're then going to grip the finger in the teeth. That could be a counterproductive exercise for you if you haven't had great instruction. But you can do things like that just to monitor and see and address what's going on. When you're learning new songs, of course, try and learn them without jaw tension. So you might do the finger in the mouth as you're singing and see if the tongue's working or underworking. If the tongue is underworking, then you can address the tongue. If it might not be the jaw that's the issue. I find things like really useful because I get a sensation that I'm relaxing around here. Sometimes singers will do this in their lessons with me, and I think it's because they feel that then it's bringing an awareness to that area. You've really got to find ways for you that you can relate to and relate with, and things that aren't going to cause you a secondary tension elsewhere. Really, this video is a starting point for your questions. So as ever, do email me your questions or post them on my Instagram so that I can post you more specific answers. The things that I would say stay away from are the things where you're encouraged to drop the jaw below normal position. So if you think there are positions for this, but I'm not going to go into that. So if you think here's quite a reasonable space, once this joint in here starts clonking, that's not going to be any good. And the reason we don't really want to widen that jaw position is, again, if you imagine, I can't hold everything here, but let's try with the knee. If I'm lowering this part, it's directly going to reduce the space in here. It's going to reduce the area for our machinery, our mechanism, our instrument to work. So if we're dropping that jaw, you're going to directly start compressing the larynx, and that's probably not very useful and will cause you other issues when you're singing certain music and certain notes. And I'm trying not to give too much description there because I don't want to confuse matters, but certainly dropping that jaw too much is going to be restrictive to you. So anything where you're kind of opening the jaw is probably not useful. We do need space for phonation, we need space for articulation, we need space for resonant sound, and we want all the filters within, above the larynx level, to be working as well. So you do need to move your jaw and your mouth and your lips, but we just don't need to overdo it. Okay, so yeah, as ever, email me your questions. My website is www.ameliacarvoice.com, email address ac@ameliacarvoice.com. You can find me on Insta, Facebook and Twitter. Thanks very much, bye.